when you're interviewing with a company, it is a two-way interview. It's not one way. You need to make sure when you go into the interview to ask the question, tell me about the culture of the company. How is it structured? What does that mean? How does it manage itself? Because if you're not asking those questions to the company, you should always, one, you should do the research, but also you should want to know about that culture because you need to determine whether it's a good fit for you. And that's an extremely important thing, and that's why I ask those questions. So another question, Andy, is tell me what you believe the traits of a very good leader are.
Well, there's been a lot of research around that. A little bit more on me. So I got my undergrad degree from Brooklyn College back a ways, 82. All right, I gave that up, Don. And went back to school for a master's degree in 2005. So I was 20 years into my career, went back to school, got a master's degree in leadership development from Penn State, the Great Valley campus, half hour or so from here. And so I actually had the opportunity to learn various formal leadership models in that course and certainly picked up some things from that. But I would say probably the number one trait of a great leader has to be being a great listener. It has to start there. If you're not smart enough to listen to others, if you're not skilled enough at bringing out their point of view, why are you going to miss out on a lot? So that I think is probably number one on my list. Another one, Don, that comes to mind for me is individualized consideration. And so as you think about people you know, people in your family, people in school, people if you have a job and at your place of work, you develop different types of relationships with different people, and you might not treat every person exactly the same. You might kid around a lot with a certain individual, and that might help how you work together with them. You may have another individual you'd never dream of doing that with because it just doesn't feel like that would be the best thing to do. So I don't think you probably have a playbook to treat everyone the same. Certainly treat everyone with the same respect, of course. But in terms of how you might motivate them, things that that's somewhat of an individual type approach, person by person.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, probably the challenge of leadership today is that managers today are actually managing 3 or 4 different generations, and they all value something differently. Any thoughts about that? How you do that?
It's unbelievable to witness and observe. So I would be considered a baby boomer. And I would say in my career, the mentality was, okay, boss, if you want me to jump, I'll jump, and I'll just tell me how high. I mean, that was sort of the mentality of our generation. Every generation has its own approach to the workforce. I do have folks from all these generations on my team, and I think it's critical you have to modernize. You have to be willing to challenge the status quo. You have to evolve your business practices, evolve the way you work with people. And some of the norms that were present when I entered the workforce, they don't fly anymore. And so we adjust as time goes by. Every good institution does that, and certainly proud to say that Penske does. And it's something we talk about a lot, and I think it's helped us with our success.
When COVID hit 3 years ago, obviously the way work got done in that time period changed the way it was traditionally done. As a result of that, there was a lot of remote workers and such. How did the context of leadership change?
Dramatically. What a set of challenges to be faced with. I mean, if you think about, I'll use Penske as my example today. Here's an organization that's been in business for 50 years and has enjoyed success for 50 years and is comprised of a set of field-based operations in every state, every county. Penske's all over the US, Canada, and Mexico. And our frontline people that work in these truck locations, there was no work from home during COVID. If you're a diesel truck mechanic and you're going to repair a vehicle, you can't do that from home. So you're going to do that from our locations. And so we had a lot that we had to do to prepare ourselves to make the workplace as safe as possible. Then we have a big corporate office that's not all that different from any big office type building. And I think we've all noticed that in many instances, and still in some industries, folks are working from home a great deal. So we had to balance that. How do we navigate a culture that's been built around collaboration, teamwork, looking each other eye to eye and making things happen together, and manage a remote workforce? Some elements of our workforce are still remote, but I think it's good and bad. So I don't characterize it as one or the other. There's positives and negatives to it. We've now been very grateful that the COVID has evolved to the point where we're comfortable having get-togethers like we're having today, and so we're seeing our associates more frequently, and we still have some work from on a remote basis. But they come in a couple of days a week, a couple of days a month. We're together enough that kind of keeps